So let's dive in with a solid example of creating a route in Basecamp. For the purposes of this example, I've created a list under the temp folder called Demo. So that's given us a nice clean canvas to work with. I've selected all types of user data in this bottom pane, and we've got nothing saved in there because we've created nothing under that list yet. For the purposes of this demo, I'm just going to do a short journey, a short route, and I'm going to use the place I grew up in, Oxenhope in West Yorkshire. We're going to go from there to the nice market town of Skipton, just over the border in North Yorkshire. And so, starting from where we are, the easiest way, I could either zoom in on the map, and I could do that using this zoom tool here, by left clicking on that, then using the left mouse button to zoom in, and the right mouse button to zoom out. So we can do that. Or you can use the plus and minus keys. So plus zooms in, minus key moves out, zooms out. Or you can type the name of a place up in the search bar here. So I'm going to search for Oxenhope. And then that's going to bring up this results pane here on the right hand side. So in this top results panel here, it's listing points of interest. So it's going to find any points of interest. Those are the Garmin built-in places which match Oxenhope somewhere in the wording on their title. And as you can see here, we've got different types. We've got a park. We've got that's a bus stop, pharmacy, and this small little dot here means a settlement. So we can click on that. If we wanted to narrow this down, this search criteria, by the way, we could do that by clicking on, let me just cancel that. We could click on more here, and we can say, you can pick the type of points of interest. So if there's a specific kind of points of interest you're looking for, in our case, we're looking for cities, because cities relates to any kind of settlement in Garmin terminology. So it can be villages or towns. And in case of Oxenhope, it is indeed a village. So that's Oxenhope. So I've left clicked on it in the results pane. I can right click on it there, and I can say show on map, and that will zoom us in to Oxenhope. Now importantly, you'll note here that it identifies one particular set of coordinates as Oxenhope. Now this is a fundamental thing people need to understand in GPS terms, and a lot of people don't. Any location in GPS terms exists in fixed XY coordinates. Now, in the case of this village, Oxenhope, it thinks Oxenhope is at that location. Now, it might be if you were travelling there, you might want to go up here to Backleaming or Dew Lane or West Shore or Glenhow Drive or any of these places. If you just put in Oxenhope, it's going to take you to this point on this street here. Okay, so that's important to bear in mind. What I'm going to do is I can actually create a route directly from that now, or I can add it as a waypoint. So I'm going to add it as a waypoint actually. So I'm going to store that as a place I might want to go back to at a future point. It looks like I've already got an Oxenhope somewhere in the database because it's called that Oxenhope 2. So there we go. That's what it will do. We'll leave that, that's fine. And we're going to go to Skipton, we said. So let's put in Skipton. 10.5 miles, yeah, looks right. And we'll create a waypoint from Skipton as well. So right click, create waypoint. So what we can do now, we've got these two places, we've got a start point and our end point. We can select both just by Control A or Select All, or the Mac equivalent, whatever that is, or just indeed left, hold down Control and left click both points, and then right click, create route from selected waypoints. As with any other application, there's any number of ways of doing these things. You don't have to use left and right click, but my motto in life is right click is your friend. If you're using a PC, right click is your friend. Context menus, they're always relative to what you want to do, so right click will invariably let you do things that are pertinent to what you've got selected. And indeed, in this case, we want to create a route using those selected waypoints. Now, we could go up here and use that, but we're going to do it this way. So create route using selected waypoints. Okay, it's done it. So there's your route planned, or maybe not. As you can see, it's currently drawn a straight line between the 2 points. So that is in fact how it's got the route set up at the moment. Now there's a reason for that I'll come into probably in the scope of a different video relating to tracks. But there's a reason why it's doing that, and that is because this mode up here, the activity profile, is currently set to direct. Now we can change that, and that changes the default route planning method when you create a new route. So if I change it now, it won't retrospectively change that route because we've already planned that in direct mode. So that's worth knowing. I'm just going to leave that on direct mode. That's worth knowing because what you can do is, if I again select this route here, let's open that, you can change the methodology, the route type here. So any of those routing profiles you can select here and change at any given time. So we've currently got it on direct. Let's say I'm going to do it on motorcycle. I will select motorcycling here, and it will recalculate that route based on that profile. Profiles I'll cover in a different video. We'll leave that as motorcycling, and as you can see, it's now planned a route from Oxenhope to Skipton using that particular profile. Now, that's all well and good, but let's assume we know this route and we think, actually, we don't want to go that way, or we want to go somewhere en route. Well, we can do that very easily. There's a number of ways you can do it, but I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this. If you've got this pan tool selected here, this hand that allows you to drag around the map, what you can do is you can hold down the Alt key while hovering over any part of this route, and as you can see, when I hover over it, we get a little bit of text underneath which says use Alt while dragging to move or insert data. So I can do, keeping my Alt key held down, I'm going to left click on the mouse, and you see it creates a point between the two extremities of the route, and I'm just going to hover over to that road there and drop it. Okay, release left mouse button and then the key, and it's dropped in a point on the route there. So we've already customized the route slightly. Now let's use the plus key and zoom in a bit more. And let's imagine I don't actually want to go through the centre of Keighley. Who would? Haha, little joke there for my Keighley friends. No. So let's assume we want to go around the edge, go around Braithwaite, Laycock, that route. We can do that again. Hold down the Alt key. Left mouse, drag. Let's drop it there. We're not going to be too precise at the moment. We're going to come back to that shortly. Well, there we go. Let's take us that route. Okay, and then let's imagine, actually we'd like to go through Haworth. Let's visit the Bronte village. So then we can, let's take it down there. So just adding points en route. So this allows you to very much on a granular basis decide exactly which way you want to route your planning. Now if we open up what we've just created here, oh by the way, let me just close that a second. If I right click on that and click show on map, it's going to zoom the map to a relevant level whereby you can see in whatever you've got selected. So left click on that, select show on map. That will zoom the map to a point that will encompass the whole of that route. So it's quite nice to get an overview of a route. Let's just double click on that route we've created, and you can see we've got this first waypoint we created and then the last waypoint we created. they exist as waypoints under our list here, and indeed throughout the whole of our collection. Now these items in between, these are slightly different, and this is where it's worth me talking about the different types of points, routing points. So first of all, we have the waypoints. Those are, as I mentioned, those are points on the map you want to store and be able to route directly to from your GPS. So they exist in your GPS as a separate item, like a favourites, listed as favourites in your GPS. So they're typically residences, friends, family. If it were a longer journey, there might be your destination for the day. They might be somewhere en route you specifically want to go to and spend some time. Essentially, they're places you want to be able to navigate to directly from the sat-nav. Okay. Then we've got via points. Now, this one here in bold is what we'd call a via point. Now, via points are points you want to route via on a route you create. And what they allow you to do is they don't exist separately in the database. They only exist in the context of the route you're creating. So that means you're not clogging up your GPS unit with, needless points en route that are just routing points pertinent to a particular journey you're doing. So they're useful in that respect. A lot of people ignore them. A lot of people just create routes based on solely waypoints, and I did for a number of years until I really got to grips with using this to its optimum. So you want to make use of these via points. The other thing about via points to know is if you stop your route at any given point during the route and turn the sat nav off, when you come back to switch on, and even if you stop the route and you restart it, when you start to navigate the route, when you select from the GPS to start to navigate that particular route, it will give you the option to go to the next via point as well as waypoint. So via points are important because if you specifically want to be able to navigate to them at any point throughout the journey, they're worth creating, they're worth using. But as I said, unlike waypoints, they don't exist separately from the route. If you delete a route, they're deleted, and typically you would use them just for breaks or regular points along route you want to be able to get back on route to. And finally, shaping points. These are marked here with they're slightly faded grey text with won't alert next to them. Shaping points are very similar to via points. They're just an arbitrary point on route used to force the route to go down specific roads. And like via points, they only exist in the context of a route. The difference between a shaping point like this, where it won't alert, and a via point is a via point will give you an audible alert that you're approaching it, and also you can resume a route to a via point. Whereas whereas shaping points, you can't resume a route to a shaping point. It's essentially just a means for you to shape the route. If you stop the route for any reason while you're traveling, and then you restart the route, any shaping points between the point you're at and your next either via point or waypoint are ignored. Okay, so if you specifically want to go to a definite location on a route, you need to make sure it's either a via point or indeed a waypoint. And you can change you can change a via point to a shaping point and vice versa. All you need to do is click on the pertinent one, and you can say alert on arrival, and that will change that now to a via point. Okay, and vice versa. You say don't alert. It changes it back to a shaping point. Hopefully that makes sense. Those are quite important terms to grasp and quite important to understand. The main thing is, if you're planning a route, make a use of these via points and shaping points. Don't rely on waypoints, otherwise you'll find you'll get just a messy list of pointless waypoints. As you can see, this is fairly clean. You've got a start point, a destination, and all the routing points in between that we want the route to go down, they've just been added as via points or shaping points. Now, having said that, let's return to this route, and what we need to ensure is that the points we've created on the map are actually in meaningful places. Now, we know that our first point, the waypoint Oxenhope, and the last point Skipton are going to be in precise locations, and they're going to be on the road almost certainly, because they're built-in points of interest in the Garmin database. However, these points in between aren't necessarily, they may well be, but they aren't necessarily on a road. They may be slightly off it. We may have dropped them slightly in a field if we weren't sufficiently zoomed in when we created them. So another key aspect of route creation is to make sure you zoom in on every point you map en route and ensure that it's on the road. That's particularly important if you import a third-party GPX file, so a track, and convert it to a route. Make absolute sure that every point on that route is actually on the road. Otherwise, you'll get hideously confused when you're traveling along, and the route seemingly wants to take you 5 meters off to the left of the main road, at which point you get strange instructions like, drive a mile and then make a U-turn, even though you're actually not making a U-turn at all. Those are, if you've ever had those kind of instructions, that'll be why. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on each of these in turn and make sure they are en route. Just for reference, this center map here, if you've got that unchecked, then the map will hold its current location when you move to these different points. So if you want it to zoom in on the points in question, just make sure you've got that center map ticked, and then it will do. So if we look at My Thom's Lane for a start, let's just zoom in. I'm going to zoom right in using the plus key on the keyboard. I want to make sure that that point, that shaping point in fact, is on the road, and it is. I'm zoomed in as far as I can go, so there's no concern there. That is definitely on the route. And let's go to Laycock Lane, so that's a via point. Now here we go, this is a perfect illustration. When I created that route, I dropped that on the map up what looked like the road, but as you can see, it's slightly off the road. So what would happen if I just left that, if I didn't go in and check? When it came to driving this route, or riding this route, it would say, as I'm coming along here, make a U-turn, because it wants to go up there and then make a U-turn back onto the route. So if you get anything like that, all we need to do is we need to move that point, and you can use this icon up here to move the point. Just click on that and left click on the point and just move it back onto the road. This is particularly important when you're planning a route which involves dual carriageways or motorways. It would be very easy to drop a point on the wrong side of the carriageway. So if you were heading northbound, you might drop it on the southbound carriageway, and then what you'd find is your route would take you up to the next junction, take you off the route, head you back down the south carriageway, so you picked up your waypoint, then take you back off the motorway, back heading north, and it just happens to people, okay? And that's why strange things like that happen, and people end up cursing GPS units when it's really human error. Sorry, folks. So this final point, that looks fine, that looks en route, so we're not worried about that. So we've now got a nice straightforward route going from Oxenhope to Skipton. If, by the same token, if I wanted to go in and change this start point, and I said, well, yeah, that's all good, but I actually want to move that somewhere else, we can do that. So we can say, no, I don't want to start there, I want to start from Gledhow Drive. Let's start from there. Okay, so then it's going to change the route starting from there instead, and it's now taken as a slightly different route at the start. and you'll note it just recalculated the route for us. Okay, so that's basic routing. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can create it from waypoints. You can also create a route using this tool up here. So you can just point to a place on the map, left click, left click, left click, and because we're in direct mode, it's just drawing direct lines between the waypoints. Then right click to end, and this is that route we just created here. As you can see, it's got the direct driving profile, route activity profile. Let's change that to motorcycling, and it will then recalculate those points based on that profile. There we go. Very odd route. But that just shows you how easy it is to create routes. As I say, I can't emphasize the importance of making sure that those points you create as routing points are actually on the map. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. That's a fairly good overview of creating a route. Certainly enough to get you started.